Hey, this is Pat Rose of Set the Hook and Pro Wrestling fame. I'm looking forward to being on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is Steve BOWTIE Bryant here. Back in the 90s, I was a pro wrestling photographer for the South. And I released what might have been one of the original sets of indie trading cards. I ran across some of these original sets. They were up in Randall Fanning's attic all this time. PG-13 rookie card. Ricky Morton, George Weingroff as the Sheik, Chris Champion, Reno Riggins, Billy Montana, Gary Valiant, the Scorpion, the Medic, Rick Reynolds, Jeff Daniels, Mephisto and Dante, Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, Marcus Woodrow, Clinton Charisma, Little Farmer John. If you'd like an opportunity to get these cards, contact me now. You can get them for only $49.99. Contact me at stevebowtiebryant at iCloud.com. Get your set now while supplies last.
Hey, this is Jimmy from the Live and in Color with Wolfie D and Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. Would you like to also make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere, and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. And that's how you're hearing this right now. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, it's made the job of producing multiple podcasts so much easier. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And as always, I am joined by my brother from the same father and mother, the Plastic Sheik, Jared Street. What's up, Sheik? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, brother. How about yourself?
Man, Merry Christmas. I guess this is our somewhat Christmas episode, you know?
It's our last one before Christmas, at least, right?
Exactly. So it's the last one before and way ahead of the next one. So some people have been really reaching out to us to come on the show, Jared, and it's actually very surprising. I don't want to announce anything, but I want to say I'll send you the message and I want to see what you think. But it is let's just say surprising. So we'll go with that. But I'd like to start the first part of this episode off by you guys out there. If you have our prayers for our family right now. We lost a first cousin, Tamara Diane Mitchell. She was like a second mom to us when we were younger. She was like an older sister. She was a troublemaker from the far reaches of space, but she was a sweetheart and we loved her. We miss her. And if you guys just have a prayer for us and especially her son, Mason, who is like our little brother. Yeah. And we, just pray for our family right now, guys. We don't want to necessarily start it off on a downer, but we do want to say that this episode is dedicated to her memory. How about that? We'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. She's very passionate about everything. So
yes.
We love her. It's gone way too soon.
Yeah, absolutely. She was way too young. She was 61 years old and just, passed away in her sleep. And, it's crazy. And it's, I think it's something that'll affect our family for the rest of our lives. And that's just how things are, So you lose good people. But, next time, always answer that phone call. Always make that phone call. Do your best to reach out, stay in touch with your family. Unfortunately, you don't know when you might not have another time to do it. So if you can learn anything from our loss or losses that you, the listener, have had in the past, don't take the second chance to, get in touch with somebody. Always make sure, if you can, to get in touch with them and try to, maintain somewhat of a relationship, because you never know what that'll mean to somebody on the other side. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
To kind of go on a different note, I don't think there's any way to segue from that, but I did want to make that mention, especially of how much she meant to us and, how much she means. She's the mother of our little brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it is what it is. But like I said, on another note, it is our 50th episode, Sheik. Our I guess, whatever. But yeah, we've reached 50 in podcasting. So, wow.
Doesn't seem like it. Honestly, seems like
about 55. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it seems like 55. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it seems like 55 of these things. Yeah.
No, but it is 50, and I think it's always something cool. I mean, we're never the one to really be like, we've been doing this for a year. We've been doing, I think the number idea is better, that way you're not held down to remembering specific dates all the time, although I could look back and see. But the point is, we've grown a lot, I think, as interviewers and podcasters, and I feel like, hopefully, that the product you hear today is better than the product you heard at the very first, and I'm not saying that in any other way other than the fact that I hope that, we continue to improve and we continue to give you all the best podcast that we can, you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still feel like a newbie at this. So, hopefully I've improved some.
Yeah, you definitely have. But again, you're not a newbie at this, even though you feel that way. I just basically said, hey, we're doing a podcast and you're doing it. So that was the way it was. But I didn't really have to argue with you too much. It was pretty easy.
You didn't have to twist my arm. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think Wolfie and I have done 126 episodes. Yes, 126. And then you add the 50-ish of hours. 50. We're saying 50. That's like 176 episodes of new original material that doesn't just pop out of thin air, y'all. So,
yeah.
So thank you all for being here with us. Thank you all for enjoying this podcast as you do. I get so many amazing notes and so many messages from so many great people. The one thing that I think most people enjoy is when we shut up and let the guy come on and talk. We've had Rick McCord on. We've had incredible guys, Shane Morton, Kroll, Jeff Daniels, Dante Mephisto, David Isley, and Tommy Angel. So many
Ben
great
Jordan,
Ben Jordan, exactly. And so many great names that we've had on here. It's been an honor to have them on here. And today we have one that is just as great as all of them in Mr. Pat Rose, man. Pat is awesome.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Got a great history, got a great resume. I know I say that all the time, but really, truly, it's very cool to be able to talk to him. Anyway, instead of yammering on about all this, let's go ahead and get him on. What do you say, man?
I'm ready.
All right. We'll be right back with Pat Rose on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Hey, guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis. We're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
This is Kroll, and you're listening to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling with Jimmy Street and Jarrett the Plastic Sheik. Be sure to like, subscribe, and view all of our USWO and Saw Wrestling content at Nashville Wrestling Network, exclusively on YouTube.
All right, we are back with more from the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And Sheik, I tell you, man, we always do our best to bring the folks a great show, and I feel like we've got a great one today. In fact, I think we have set the hook on one real quick. Hold on. I'm reeling it in right now. Oh, no, I got him. All right. Hey, Pat Rose, how you doing?
Hey, man, how you guys doing? Doing good down here in Trenton, Georgia.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with us today, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're very excited about it, Pat, because we were talking about this a little bit before the show, and, we've had a great run of guys recently. Tommy Angel, Rick McCord, David Isley. I was like, and we got to get somebody with some history to them, and that's why we got you, man.
That's all good guys you just mentioned there. Rick McCord, the whole deal. Good people.
Yeah. Rick was incredible. It was just, well, I tell you what, I would only compare it to your list.
Yeah.
So territory guys that did some awesome stuff, and honestly, we're just really busy. So I tell you what, instead of yapping about other people, let's go ahead and get started here. So the very first question, we always start with my brother, the Plastic Sheik. Take it away, Sheik.
All right, Pat. So this question right here is designed to kind of let the audience get to know you and your influences, and to let us get to know you. But if you had like 4 or 5 wrestlers that you could say are on your like Mount Rushmore of best wrestlers or most like to watch wrestlers or whatever, who would they be?
It's funny. I done an interview last week with a big podcast guy here in Chattanooga, and that was the first question he asked me.
Oh man.
Man, I've got to go with Terry Funk, Harley Race, Ric Flair, one more, right?
And 1 or 2. You can have 2 if you need it.
Let me have, and these are tag teams: Midnight Express, Rock and Roll.
Oh my gosh, man! That might just be the list. I might not need to ask that question anymore.
Yeah, I think we got the one. Ding 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 ding.
Yeah, you just broke that. You just broke that question, I believe. Man,
you know what? I never got to work with Harley or Terry Funk, and I've had Terry on my show, our radio show, Seth Hook, Pat Rose.
Yeah,
and had him on a couple of times, man, and I love that guy. I hated he passed away, but we all got a transition.
Right.
But what a super guy. And Harley Race was always one of my favorite wrestlers. The way he moved.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was so methodical and smooth, and he didn't rush. And the guy was great.
Really was. He really was. The Funker too, man. I tell you, he's one of my favorites of all time as well. But he's just so funny, especially when you get him on a show. I'm sure you noticed that when you had him on your show. It's just hilarious, man.
Yeah, he is. And I was lucky, man. I got to hang out with Dory Jr. Over in Puerto Rico, and got to know him really good and talk to him a lot. And through that, I got introduced to Terry when we was doing WCW, and he was announcer or whatever.
Yeah.
And just a super guy.
That's awesome.
Guy.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, Sheik, it was your turn. Now it's my turn. So, Pat, tell me about your younger days. Where were you born? Like, talk about your high school and kind of lead that into when you started liking wrestling.
Sure, man. I was born in Anaheim, California, moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee with my grandmother when I was 6 months old. My grandmother raised me. Yeah. I had a cousin that used to go to the Memorial Auditorium here in Chattanooga, and her name was Joni, and she'd take me, and I would sit in the Gold Circle, which is the middle part of the arena, and you can have a good view and this and that, and I would see, oh my God, Jackie Fargo, Roughhouse Fargo, Don Fargo, Dennis Condrey, Phil Hickerson, Kojo Yamamoto, all these guys, the old timers.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it when I was 12 years old. Now, I went to Dade County High School here in Trenton, Georgia. Okay. And it was called Northwest Georgia High School at that time. but I wrestled from the 8th grade till I was a senior, amateur wrestling, shoot wrestling, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And loved every minute of it. Now, at the age of 19, and stop me when you want to, but the age of 19, I met a guy named Ken Hawk.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, who Ken Hawk is, he was the manager of the original Samoans, T.O. and Tapu.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
I went to Washboard Lane up there in Cleveland. Ken's passed away now, bless his heart, but went to Washboard Lane up there in Cleveland. Ken had a ring out in his yard, and I trained for about 2 weeks with a guy named Bill Russell, and I'm thinking Mike somebody. But they trained me, and in 2 weeks I was getting ready to wrestle Ken Lucas down here at the WDF TV 12 in Chattanooga. And I was at the door, and I looked over at Ken. I said, "Hey, Ken, you gonna tell me what to do, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, kid, just listen to me." I said, "Yes, sir." And we had a good match, man. It was top wrist lock. I'd pull his hair. He'd fight up. I'd pull his hair. And, it was funny, man. It's good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good.
That's awesome. So you felt maybe what you would consider yourself a bit of a natural from the start? Did you feel like you just figured it out?
I was an athlete. Played football, wrestled. So that helped me.
Right.
In taking bumps, doing arm drags, and taking a backdrop. And this was when all this first started, taking a backdrop over the top onto the floor. And that was about as far as I went with it.
Yeah.
I'm not the flipping and floppy guy. I love mat wrestling.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it's in your background in shoot wrestling. That's perfect.
Yeah. Doing spots and this and that,
Oh, yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I think there's elements of both that I enjoy, but I think a good mat-based wrestling match, man almighty.
Yeah, and I always love working with or wrestling Les Thornton. Now, Les Thornton was a mat wrestler shooter too, and I didn't realize, but I was looking back at videos of Georgia Championship, and I got to wrestle with Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
Oh,
and again, mat wrestlers, man, and they were good. They were good.
Oh, dude, for real. Well, I promise we're going to get there. I promise. Let's kick it off from the start here, though. So, NWA Mid-America for Nick Gulas. Obviously, probably one of the promotions you were like, I got to work for them for sure if I'm going to be a wrestler. How was it when you first met Nick?
It was great. He loved me, and at the first, my official name is Pat Smith.
Okay.
And that's what I was wrestling as. And Nick come to me one time, and he says, "Boy, you don't look like a Smith. From now on, your name is Pat Rose." And I said, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
So from that point on, Pat Rose was my name. And Nick Gulas was always nice to me, always paid me good. I know he's got a lot of bad rep out there, but he was good to me.
The more that I talk to wrestlers who actually worked for him, I feel like that those rumors and bad stories kind of get pushed to the side. Yeah. I mean, we've talked to several men who got their start in for Nick, and it's funny. It seems like maybe a lot of those bad stories about him are unfounded. It sounds like.
Yeah, I agree, man. Because if Bobby Eaton was still alive, I'm sure Bobby Eaton would have something nice to say about Nick.
Yeah, exactly.
Bobby Eaton owes Nick his career, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, Pat, throughout the show, we normally do this thing called the name game. It's just like a name association. First thing you think of, or a story or anything like that. And we usually play it at the end of the show. But with you and being your history is so rich with all these great names, we're actually going to start it at the beginning and roll through it the whole show and then go into stories and things like that as we go. So, Pat Rose, would you like to play the name game?
Sure, brother.
All right. DJ, hit the music. Okay, we're back with Pat Rose and the name game. So we talked about Nick, and that leads us to his son, George. Now, George has recently got a bit of flack on YouTube by an unnamed wrestler. I know this wrestler's going through some health issues. We're not trying to pile on him, but George Gulas being the first name.
Again, good guy to me. Never had to work with him. You know, I don't want to put no heat on him or nothing like that, but he was more of a basketball player than he was a wrestler. You know what I mean?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
All right. How about Coco Beware?
Loved him. When he first started, he would come stay with me in Chattanooga and come over to the house and hang out till the matches. And Coco's a sweetheart, man. I love him to death.
That's awesome. So we've picked a few of these names from your early days there. You know, some of these names, some of the listeners may not know, but I want you to teach them about them. So a gentleman named Rocky Brewer, how about him?
Rocky Brewer, we were the NWA Mid-America Tag Team Champions. As a matter of fact, it's funny you should mention him. I'm getting a replica of the NWA Mid-America Tag Belts from... Where is this guy? From Pakistan.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's good, brother.
Yeah, he does good. Yeah.
I had the original Southeastern tag belt, and now I got a replica of the Southeastern tag belt, and it looks perfect. And this guy does a good job, and they're affordable, you know.
Yeah.
But Rocky Brewer, great guy. I talked to him. A couple years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and he's doing good. He was running shows up where he's from, Iowa or somewhere.
Yeah.
But Rocky Brewer, good guy.
Cool. Well, the next one on the list I'm going to ask is Duke Myers.
Duke. All right. The first time, and this is funny, man. They were beating up, him and Tojo was beating up Rocky Brewer, all right? And Nick said, son, I'm going to have you go in and say Rocky Brewer, go to Harry Thornton, ask him, can you help him? Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I went to Harry Thornton. I said, Mr. Thornton, can I go help my buddy Rocky? And he says, yeah. So I slide in under the bottom rope and start beating up everybody and beating up Duke Myers. And Duke Myers was doing the honors, and I kicked him, and he got hot at me, and I didn't know, but Duke Myers, good guy. I like him, man.
That's
good
awesome.
Person.
That's awesome. Well, the next one on the list, we got to go with Phil Hickerson.
Phil Hickerson, Dennis Condrey, one of the best tag teams in Nick Gulas history. I loved watching those guys. Yeah. From the audience, man, and I got to know Phil pretty good and stopped by Jackson, Tennessee at his radio station and just talk to him and hang out with him. Got to know him real well. He's a good person.
That's awesome.
How about the Blonde Bombers?
Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham. That's who we beat for the titles, man. Love Wayne Ferris. Love the honky tonk man. Had him on the show a couple times. Still try to talk to him every now and then. And
that's awesome.
Larry Booker, Larry Latham, he's passed away.
Right. In the ring. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Good guys.
You mentioned him earlier. How about Tojo?
Loved him. He was a stickler for kayfabe, and I am a stickler for kayfabe, although everybody knows.
Right.
But you're not going to hear it from me.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, he told me years ago, he said, Pat Rose, Al, how'd I go? He says, Pat Rose, you ever tell anybody I'll have Gypsy Joe break your legs? And I was 19, I was like, yes, sir. You know.
That's all you needed to hear, right?
That's right, bro.
Well, you brought him up. I want to hear something about Gypsy Joe.
Gypsy, golly. Okay. 19 years old, working out hard, had a body, kind of, sort of. Gypsy would just beat the crap out of you, and
Yeah.
I would fight him right back. I'd try to hurt him. He'd try. Oh Lord! But as far as being stiff, Gypsy, man, he was the guy. Golly, but a good guy. I like Gypsy.
Right. Yeah.
How about Arvel Hutto?
Arvel had a match with him in Nashville. This is the last time we worked together. Had a match with him. Me and him was tagging against the Midnight Rockers, Shawn Michaels,
Yes.
and Marty.
Oh, wow, yeah.
For
Man,
WWF. Yeah.
Hey, our part was good. Orville stuff was struggling, man. He was struggling. I loved working with the Rockers.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun with Orville.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that coming up, I promise, because I have an interesting question to ask you about that match. But let's go ahead and lean into, we're going to step out of the name game real quick. So next comes up in 1980, you're in Gulas, and then you actually make your way to Georgia Championship. What was your connection to get there? How did you get there?
Well, what happened was Nick was shutting down.
Yeah.
And he sent me and Bobby Eaton to Georgia Championship.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just saw y'all's match last night, by the way. I've been watching nothing but Pat Rose for the past 3 or 4 days, and I watched your match with Bobby last night. And man, that was a great match, man. That was really good.
It was a lot of fun. Bobby's a good guy, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have ever met him, but you'd fall in love with him. He's a sweetheart.
I have, and I did. I got to know him just a little bit. I'm not saying we were best friends, but he was great to know and very blessed to know him. I couldn't believe it. One of the greatest heels of our childhood, and he was, it's just like all the heels. I think they're the nice guys in effect. But well, speaking of someone that I've heard is a nice guy, but he was also a great heel, and probably not at this time, but Ted DiBiase.
I knew him. Wrestled with him in Mid-South. Was we buddies? No, we never traveled together, but, good guy, I guess. All my experiences was good with him.
If you're going to talk about Georgia Championship Wrestling and you're going to talk about a heel, I think this guy is maybe the best heel in wrestling history, Ole Anderson.
Loved Ole, man. And I got to tell you a Pat Rose story. I was going to Georgia Championship. We would do that every Saturday morning and come back and watch it at 6:05 and head out to an outlaw show. But I had just got a win over Dale Veazey. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with Dale Veazey, but he had a body and looked good and the whole deal. But that was a big deal, getting a win on national TV with him.
Yeah.
So I'm walking back through the control room, and I'm thinking at that time, Ole and Flair was booking, or maybe Ole or maybe Flair. I don't remember. But they said, Pat, come here. They were sitting at the control room booth or whatever. And I said, yes, sir. And they said, hey, Pat, what are you doing right now? And I just had my daughter, Erica, and what are you doing right now? I said, well, I'm working a job and wrestling. And at that time, I was making $1,200, $1,500 a week. So I was good.
Yeah.
And,
no doubt.
And, early 80s, that was good money.
Yes, sir.
But Ole asked me, did I want to work full time? And I don't know if I would have got Tommy Rich's spot or not, but they were talking good about me and the whole deal. And I said, no. I was working a job. My daughter was just born, and I said no. So, what if? That's a what if deal there.
Definitely.
Now, it was during the time Buzz was there, Tommy was there. Would I be dead by now? I don't know. Maybe that was a blessing from God saying, back out right now. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's some strength, actually, because, it could have been different for you, but at the same time, it could have been worse. I think you've got a good perspective on it now, but, I don't think it sounds like you don't regret it, though. I think you stayed.
I don't at all. After that, territory pushes, not any national pushes, and I could have handled a national push,
Sure, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think you could have, for sure. Now, speaking of someone who's a national push, I'm sure this guy pushed you around a little bit nationally, but in Georgia, he was going by the Mongolian Stomper.
Yeah, Archie Goldie, right?
Yes, sir.
I got to meet Archie, got to hang out with Archie, never got to work him. Just a good person back in the locker room, man. Good guy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good guy.
How about the Freebirds?
Oh my God. Every time I do a radio show, there's a lot of wrestlers come from the Chattanooga area.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There's only one that I recognize, and that's Terry Bam Bam Gordy. He's the man.
Yeah.
In Chattanooga, Soddy Daisy, Freebird Mountain.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
the man from around here. Not me, not any other of the guys that come from here. This is Terry Gordy country, man.
Didn't he have like a cabin on? Isn't that why it was called Freebird Mountain or something to that effect?
Well, they used to do I forget the actual name of the mountain, but Michael Hayes named it Freebird Mountain. And they used to do a Freebird Golf Classic up there. And Terry lived there, and he built a log cabin up there. As a matter of fact, if you drive through Soddy Daisy, you can still see it up on the mountain. I think Terry's dad or uncle or somebody was the sheriff of Soddy Daisy.
Mm-hmm.
And but you can still see Freebird Mountain, still see Terry's log cabin up there. But I got to travel with him, got to stay with him at the Falcons Rest in Atlanta, and just, man, I love the fabulous Freebirds, man.
Yeah, no doubt. We always talk about on here, if you were to have a child or anybody and you were going to describe, hey, draw what you think of as a pro wrestler. There's several that you could say, like, obviously Sid or Hogan or whatever. But I always think that somebody could easily draw Terry Gordy, and that would be a pro wrestler in somebody's mind, because
I tell my son all the time he looks just like Gordy.
Uh-oh.
He does, man. Got the big nose. You know how he used to flex his nose?
Yeah.
Camden does that all the time.
That's awesome. Well, maybe he should have played him in the movie instead of Silas, but
Silas gonna be good. We got to meet him we got to meet him last Saturday, and when Billy Corgan made the big announcement that the next territory for the NWA is going to be Joe Kazana Promotions.
Right,
and
right.
Yeah, man, what a big announcement. I'm so proud of my buddy Joe for getting that stowed upon him, man. A lot of history with the Joe Kazana people. About 92 years.
Yeah.
About 92 years of pro wrestling.
Exactly. I thought that's the most natural fit, and I feel like it legitimizes the NWA a little more, and I mean that in the best, because the current NWA I know is not the same as the old NWA, but if you're going to keep that history alive, you got to have Joe involved, no doubt, So
exactly, totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Well, the next one on the list, no question, and if you can do the impersonation, you get extra points. But the next one on the list, no question, had to be a big match for you, and that was Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, my God. Scared to death. I was like 3 foot tall. He was about 8 foot tall. I loved it. And I love Dusty Rhodes, man. We got to be not real close, not riding buddies. I didn't go over for dinner, nothing like that. But we would talk fishing all the time, and I would tell him, I'd say, Dusty caught some smallmouth this week, man, when we're at TV. He said, Perro, you didn't catch no smallmouth. And he'd tell Dustin, Perro said he caught some smallmouth. They just get on me, man, but I love Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah. You're speaking of your show, our father is an avid fisherman. Since his half retirement, he's fished every week, I think even in the cold weather days. And I joke, I said, Jared, I told Jared before the show, I said, honestly, our father, our who made us, part of our DNA, would rather listen to Pat's show, I'm sure, than our show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, man, I tell you what, our show, we do it every week. Been doing it about 15 years, and we talked to the top bass pros from Major League Fishing to Bassmaster, and Lord, I've had Bill Dance, Jimmy Houston, and Hank Parker, all of them on the show, man.
That's awesome. Well, I promise we'll get more into that, but I just had to bring that up as it came to my mind. So,
yeah.
All right. How about Jim Duggan?
Love Jim Duggan. Loved him. Wrestled with him a couple times. Was in Mid-South with him.
Yeah.
And just super guy, and I'm so glad he's kicked cancer.
Yeah, amen. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the next guys on the list, and this is actually, they were a tag team at this time, so I'm going to put them together, even though they really became two separate entities totally on down the line. But in Georgia Championship Wrestling, there was a very promising young tag team in Arn Anderson and Matt Bourne.
Yeah. Matt Bourne, good wrestler. Arn's name speaks for itself. I was... and he gives me credit for helping train him. Actually, Ted Allen trained him, but Ted would bring him to a place called Albertville in up in Alabama on the mountain, and Arn and Tony Zane and all those guys that were training with Ted would come up and work. Mm-hmm. And I would get to work with Arn, man. And Arn, I hate he got hurt. I understand how he got hurt because, and I tell Camden this all the time, if you would notice how he hit the ropes, flat backed instead of a little turned.
Yeah.
When that rope broke, he had nowhere to go but out over and on the floor.
Right. Okay.
Now, if you hit the rope kind of sideways, you would have an opportunity. You could feel that rope, because I had it happen to me on Memphis TV. The rope broke, and I didn't take a bump outside. I was controlled, the whole deal, and I hate that Arn got hurt like that, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
He was great. He was great. Matt Bourne, good wrestler, too.
Yeah.
Traveled with him a few times, and a lot of laughs, and he was a good wrestler, too.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
All right. How about Stan Hansen?
Oh, my God. I would work with Stan every now and then at the Omni in Atlanta, and I'm so blessed to have had work there, man. Back in the day, that was the South's Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Amen.
And I got to work with Stan, and he gave me the whole match. But when it comes time for the lariat, whoo, he laid that baby in there, and that's what I told him, and he started laughing. But Stan Hansen, man, he's one of the greats.
That's awesome. Very cool.
You know what, man? Just thinking about this, we were lucky. How old are you guys?
I'm 45. Jared's 42. Yeah.
Okay, we were lucky to come up with these guys. You know what I mean?
No doubt, yeah.
Witnessing Terry Funk, witnessing Dusty Rhodes, Stan Hansen, Ole and Gene Anderson. My Lord, we were so lucky.
We were, yeah. Amen. Yeah, that's why we're bringing them all up, man. That's honestly it.
Love it, man. Love it.
So the next one on the list now, this guy, he went on to make a much bigger name for himself, but he might have even been Richard Rude or Rick Rude at this time, but I think they modified the spelling to his original form at this time. But anyway, Rick Rude.
You know what? I was there when all those Minnesota guys come down, Road Warriors.
Yeah.
Got to meet the Warlord in Kansas City. Rick Rude started coming down, and I was his first match on Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
And at that time, he was green, but God, look what he turned out to be, man. He was great.
Yeah, no doubt. That's, it seems like there was something in the water up in that Minnesota area there,
Yeah, man.
Speaking of
dudes.
Yeah, you brought him up. Go ahead and talk about the Road Warriors while we're at it.
Loved them, man. Hawk and Animal. When I was on my way out, and I'd done a couple TVs for WWE. I think it was Huntsville, Nashville, and Chattanooga. But I got to ride with, or Hawk rode with me.
Okay.
And we had such a good conversation. He's such a good guy. And back in the Georgia Championship Wrestling days, he would bring, you know what Zubas are, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
He would bring me boxes of Zubas. And he said, Pat Rose, I want $5 per for him. So I upped the price to $15. Yeah. And man, he would bring them to me. It seems like every week, but I was always covered up in Zubas. If you wanted Zubas, see Pat Rose.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You were the store. I love it. That's awesome.
Matter of fact, I ordered my son and I a few pair throughout the years, and we still wear Zubas.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard they're very comfortable. I've never owned a pair, and that is a shame. I can't even. I should have to quit this podcast. That's not even. When we get
off this daggum podcast, you go there and you order you a pair.
I will. I promise.
Did the Road Warriors own a stake in that or something? Or
they did. Something? They own the company.
Yeah. I think it was.
Did.
Yeah, which, heck yeah, man, that's a brilliant idea, and they were already probably looking for pants just like that, and then they, end up having the company, which is awesome, So,
yeah, that was cool, man. That was really cool.
Very cool.
King Kong Bundy.
He was a good guy. Got to work him a couple times here in Chattanooga and on TV.
Yeah.
He took care of you, didn't hurt you. You figured him being that big, he'd hurt you and fall on you and all kinds of stuff, but he was a good worker. Good worker.
That's awesome. Okay, well, this next one is, this next name I'm going to bring up is synonymous with, legendary wrestling. But the only difference is there was a junior at the end of this name versus the name that was the longtime WWF heavyweight champion is Bruno Sammartino Jr. or David Sammartino. And you actually wrestled him at the famous Last Battle of Atlanta show.
Man, you know what? Camden, I was watching that last night. And you can tell my body was in shape. I was on key at that time.
Yeah.
And working with David Sammartino was an honor. Being his lineage as Bruno's son and the whole deal, I loved it. I loved it. And actually, he beat me 1, 2, 3, but he actually shook my hand and raised my hand in the ring. And I thought that was cool of him. So
very cool. Yeah. And you're right. I just watched that last night myself, actually. So whoever has that YouTube channel is getting some views, but you were on point and it was a very good match. And I thought you did a great job with him.
Thank you, man.
Now I got to hear about this. So it was, and I could be wrong and I might be off my timeline, but around this time, maybe you're riding a little bit with Jim Cornette to some things. And there's a rumor you do an incredible impersonation that you created, and he couldn't do it on his show, but I would love for you to.
Man, Cornette would laugh, the pig man.
Yeah, the pig
and
man.
I would raise and I look like a pig, I guess. And he would just laugh, he would cackle, so I'd do it every time I was around him just to make him laugh.
Yeah.
But Cornette and I, when we were in, and I was so proud to be a part of this.
Yeah.
When Rock and Roll and Midnight started that feud in Mid-South.
Yeah.
I knew my job. I was first, second, or third match. My job was to take, what's his name? Tony Torres or Jerry Gray and have a hell of a match with them.
Okay.
That was my job, to get them fired up and ready for the Rock and Roll. And that's exactly what I did. And I had no problem with it. I made good money. And I always thank Ricky Morton. And I talk to him and Kerry every now and then. Kerry's great.
Yeah.
But I talk to him, talk to Ricky every now and then. And I thank him so much for making me a lot of money in Mid-South. But my Lord. Yeah. And if you would, go watch episode 310 of Jimmy Cornette Drive-Thru.
Okay, will do. Yeah.
I'm at 10,644. So let's get it. Go.
All right. Sounds good. I love it. Next up in your career, it's 84, and you actually make your way down to Mid-South, and you end up working the Rock and Roll Express while you're there. So talk about, bring up the Rock and Roll. Talk about those guys.
Man, Rock and Roll were great. And we did, that's jumping around, but Rock and Roll was great. I love working with them. I remember working with Ricky and Robert at it was an Army base, but it wasn't TV or nothing like that, just a regular house show, and got to work with them, man. And they would do anything I asked. Anything I wanted to do, they would do.
Yeah.
And but TVs now, you better put them over, because them boys, they're selling the tickets.
Yeah, amen. That's awesome.
But loved working with them, and I love the Rock and Roll.
Yeah, very cool. Well, you dip down to Mid-South, but then you head back to Georgia Championship, and you actually work one of my favorite big men of all time in Don Jardine, a.k.a. the Spoiler.
I don't remember that match, but I'm sure I did, because I worked with everybody on Georgia Championship. But actually, when I was in Mid-South, I got a call from Arn Anderson. And got a call from Arn Anderson. He said, Pat Rose, turn your notice in, get down here to Southeastern. So I said, okay. So I turned my notice in. Next thing I know, I was in Pensacola, hanging out with Quick Draw Rick McGraw, my buddy. I loved him to death, and I can't believe he's passed away.
Yeah.
But I didn't see Arn for 2 weeks when I got there. And then I finally moved in with Arn, and the rest is history. We had a good time.
That's awesome.
So I see you did some stuff in WCCW. I guess it was like the Missing Link in Killer Khan. Talk about, some of that.
Well, that's when, if I'm not for sure, Jared had the territory, right?
Yes.
And, I got to wrestle with him, got to meet Devon Eric, hang out with Kerry and talk to those guys, and enjoyed working the Sportatorium, man. A lot of history there. And I show that to my son all the time, the Sportatorium.
Oh,
but,
man.
Working with Killer Khan, what a legend.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do a little thing, you do Mid-South, you do World Class, and then you do a little thing in Mid-South. And I guess this is where Arn tells you to wrap it up. But you work, guys like the Fantastics, Dr. Death, Buddy Landell, the PYTs, you got to work Terry Taylor. One of the guys I want to hear about, and this guy was actually previously on our show, is Rick McCord.
Oh, good guy, man. Good worker, good wrestler. If I'm not mistaken, I was in Kansas City with him when Jim Crockett bought Kansas City. Mm-hmm. They sent me, the Mod Squad, Warlord, I'm thinking the Barbarian was there.
Probably.
But it was a lot of fun. Mitch. Oh my God, a young kid, good looking kid, Mitch somebody. But worked with all those guys in Kansas City, yeah. We'll think about it when we all hang up.
It's okay. Maybe it'll come to you in a minute. That's no problem.
That's right.
And so then, like you were saying, it leads you up to now going to Southeastern and Pensacola. And I know a lot of guys went there, especially when, it was a beautiful scenery down there. I know that the Pensacola beaches are some of the best as far as in Florida goes, So Arn was your connection there? Is that essentially how you got down there?
Yeah, Arn got me in, and they put, as soon as we came in, they put me and Wrestling 2 together.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
and we got to work together. He taught me a lot, and I'm telling you what, I've still got my hoods over here, my dinner hood and my regular hood. But as far as kayfabing, we would be 30 miles outside of the city, and he'd say, all right, put them on. So we'd put the hoods on. He said, don't look left, don't look right, just look straight ahead. I said, okay, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And heck yeah, we teamed, and then we had hurt Tonga Kid on TV, hurt his shoulder or something, because he was going to New York. And then come to find out about 2 weeks later, they had to unmask me and put me with Randy Rose because two was going to New York, and I just watched a match last night with two in New York. I don't remember. Oh, Randy Savage.
Yeah.
He worked with Randy Savage.
That's awesome.
And they put me and Randy together and put the belts on us a couple of times. And man, what a team we made! And Randy, as far as I'm concerned, is tag team wrestling in Southeastern. He was there 100 years.
Yeah, and, amen. Amen.
We had a blast. Love Randy Rose.
You were the Rose cousins, right? That's awesome.
The Rose cousins, and we'd go to the ring, man. And I don't know if you heard or not, but Dothan, the Houston County Farm Center, was dirt. It was a dirt floor.
Gotcha. Okay.
We would carry a rose out. We would find the fattest girl on ringside, and I'd go to reach and give her the rose, and I'd drop it. And we'd both start stomping it. And oh my God, that got so much heat. that was something else.
That's awesome.
All right, now I believe this is the start of your career-long battles with the Armstrongs. Am I right?
Yes. Oh, my Lord, yes. And Steve just come in. He was just getting in the business, so we trained him. And Scott, and oh, my Lord. Yeah, working with the Armstrongs. They're great. They're great. And seriously. I love Bullet Bob Armstrong.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Pat. So let's just pretend there's a fictitious gun to your head. Okay. And we're not really going to pull the trigger, but just pretend like somebody might. And you had to say who the best Armstrong was. And it's going to hurt
Brad.
you. I know. I knew you were going to say that.
Brad.
Yeah.
He was great.
So smooth, right?
Oh, my God. You wouldn't believe it. You've seen him work.
Yeah.
You've seen him work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Always had a great look about him. Did you work all the Armstrongs? Did you work Brian too? Or did you work just the others?
I didn't. When I met Brian, he was a kid. And he was about to go into the Marine Corps when I met him.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I remember, him showing up in Continental in his Marine dress blues and, talking to Fuller and anyway, that was some great stuff. I think that Southeastern Continental stuff is just extremely underrated as far as just heat and just good quality wrestling. I mean, honestly.
Oh, totally agree, man. And the angles. Ron Fuller's a smart man.
Oh yeah.
And I got to see him. My son plays country music, and he had a show in Pigeon Forge, and Ron came one night, and Tom Pritchard came one night, and Ron, smartest booker I've ever known.
Yeah.
And if you don't listen to his podcast, you need to, because he tells stories and he just captivates you, man. You're just listening like, and what a guy. What a guy.
The stud cast, I believe, is what they call it, right? That's a great show.
Yeah.
I agree. Great listening. So now part of the Armstrongs, they kind of did their own thing and started this little faction. And it's kind of funny knowing what we know about wrestling now, especially some of the insider terms. But at this time, and I'm going to ask you, was it just blatantly known, or they were called the Rat Patrol? And was this just something that they made up as an inside joke and thought they would use it? Or what do you think?
I'm thinking it was.
Yeah.
But they got over.
Yeah, and I'm sure they didn't have problems with the ladies, So.
Yeah, the people loved them. They got over it. The Rat Patrol loved it.
It's great stuff.
All right, how about Wildfire Tommy Rich?
Loved it. I was doing a tour. I had a week tour going down to Key West and all that. And I was scheduled to wrestle with Elegante the whole tour.
Oh,
wow. Whoa.
Thank God that Gordon Soley loved me, and he said, Pat, you're not working with Elegante. Hold on a minute. Okay. And the whole week I had Tommy Rich, man. It was like night off every day. Tommy Rich was great. He wasn't good. He was great.
Right. Exactly. And
far as I'm concerned, he was kicking Hulk Hogan's ass when he was on top.
Right. You know, it's funny because you work in Tommy that during that time frame, that was when it was kind of during the York Foundation, if I'm not mistaken, era of WCW. He may not have been in that yet, but anyway, yeah, he and Ricky both totally changed their look and everything. They went heel, grew little stubbly beards, and you know, just awesome stuff. But it was so different from what we were used to seeing, especially these two blonde-haired babyface guys. You know, trying to be heels. But Tommy had some great heel years too, for sure. But you know, it's funny.
Oh man, the Buzzsaw Tommy Rich years. Oh my God.
Brutal. And you know, I know those matches are talked about and it's deserving of its, but I still feel like it's underrated, you know. So
I do too. We should still be talking about that like we talk about, and we don't really talk about it a lot, is Mick Foley's bumps off the cage.
Right.
Now, there's a guy here here near Chattanooga in Ringo, Georgia, called Paul Lee that has Wrestle Jam every year.
Okay.
And one year he had Mick there, and Camden and I were standing. They had just inducted me into the Hall of Fame or whatever. And Camden and I was standing back at the door, and we felt somebody behind us, and it was Mick Foley. And the first thing I told him, I said, Mick, can I tell you something, brother? And he said, sure. And I said, man, you know the bump that you took off the cage and through the cage and the tooth in the nose and this and that? I said, that should be yours.
Yeah.
Nobody else should do that. And I said, why in the hell does Shane McMahon do that? It means nothing.
Yeah.
When he jumps off the cage and all that. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I hope he gets this message. And I say this every time I'm on a podcast. I hope he gets this message, because leave it alone, Shane. That's Mick Foley. I don't want to remember you falling off the cage.
Right. Amen. Yeah. Maybe just don't wrestle ever again. How about that?
Please, Shane, do what the gear says and don't wrestle ever again, okay?
Well, I think we just got our next reel, Jared. So,
that's a clip worthy, man. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a clip for sure. Yeah.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at GeneJacksonPod.com.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to LostWrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
So one of the tag teams that you got to work in Southeastern, as you're kind of wrapping up and about to go to Mid-South again in 85. And I love talking about this tag team because I love Nightmare Danny Davis, but obviously you got to work the Nightmares.
Oh, yeah, man. Ken Wayne, Danny Davis, good guys, real good guys.
Yeah.
And I got to travel a lot with Danny Davis, got to know him and stuff like that. What a good guy. And I was proud of him when he took OVW and made it what it is. He was lucky enough to have WWE guys, you know, training there and take claim to, hey, we've trained, you know, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, you know, this and that.
Right. Right, exactly. I mean, that's the truth. The superheroes on TV right now, I think all of them are superheroes, basically. You know, he trained them as wrestlers to be able to be famous enough for superheroes. So anyway, absolutely. So obviously, like I said, you end up in 85, you end up in Mid-South again. And this is a little bit of a longer run here, and you get to work some incredible names. The first one, you know, being as we're a Tennessee, even though we both live in, Jared lives in Virginia, I live in North Carolina, our listener base is predominantly Tennessee. So in the names that we bring up, sometimes have a Tennessee lean. This guy, obviously, with Memphis, Brickhouse Brown.
Brickhouse Brown had a heck of a body. I talked to him and sent him some money. He didn't ask me, never asked for a dime. I sent him some money, and I hate that he had to pass away the way he did.
Hey,
but
man.
What a guy!
Yeah.
What a guy! Super guy. I love him.
Yeah, I've never heard a bad story about him, and I want to keep it that way because that's awesome. Yeah. Great body. Absolutely. And I've heard it was just so easy for him, that body too. It wasn't very, hard to look like that for Brick, and that's pretty cool, So.
And you know what? That's the key to being a good professional wrestler. You got to have the look.
Right.
Arn told me one time I had backed out of the gym for a little bit, and he said, Pat Rose, don't smarten the people up, get back in the gym. And I said, yes, sir. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so Jared, with the next name.
All right, this guy is one of these guys that's known as just one of the toughest guys in the business, the Barbarian.
He was one of the funniest guys in the business, and I threatened to whoop his butt one time. We were out somewhere, and I was mad. And I was saying, man, I'm going to whoop your ass. This and that. You know what? He was sitting on me, holding me down, laughing. It was funny. So funny. I love John North. Love him to death. He was funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, the next one is Al Perez.
Al Perez, good-looking dude, man. And I was in Puerto Rico with him and Mid-South with him. Al Perez was a good worker. Is he still living? Do you guys know?
Yeah, I do believe, yeah. I think he just inducted his brother Lou Perez into the Florida Hall of Fame, I think, of wrestlers. So, they got that whole Florida guys dinner they do down there, which I would just love to be a fly on the wall for that.
Too. I'd like to go sometime.
Well, you should go, Pat. I'm sure they would open the door for you, brother. I'm just thinking they may not open it for me, but maybe if I...
Sure they would.
Yeah, no, Bob Cook, Joe Gomez, all those guys. Steve Kern, love Steve to death. Great guy.
Man.
Yeah, great stuff.
Hector Guerrero, talked about him.
First time I wrestled, first and only time, I think, was in Houston. And me coming from Chattanooga, Tennessee, that was the first time I've ever seen Mexicans.
Okay.
So many Mexican brothers and all in one place. And I was like, wow. But yeah, I worked with Hector at the Sam Houston Coliseum, had a heck of a match. I love Hector to death, talk to him, message him every now and then and just, I love you, brother. Hope you're doing well. And he's all into the Bible thing, and that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh my God! Can I tell you a story? This just come up in my mind.
Please, yeah, of course.
Colt Cabana, whatever his name is, did a question or ask whatever.
Yeah.
And there was a kid, and I'm trying to find this kid so I can apologize to him. But back in the day, we, working Outlaws, you use the restroom with the marks, right?
Right, exactly.
And I was in there, and I was trying to pee and this and that, and this little kid trying to talk to me and this and that. And I said, I kind of got on the kid and said, I'm trying to take a pee. And I wish I could find that guy. I'd love to talk to him and apologize to him.
Well, if you're out there and listening, come on the show with Pat, and we'll talk. We'll bring Pat back on, and we'll have that conference.
We'll do it on y'all's show, man.
Thank you, Pat. Now that's an honor. That's a gentleman right there. Thank you, brother. A true gentleman.
How about Bill Dundee?
Love Bill Dundee. He and I was good buddies. We had a one heck of a match on a little TV down here in Chattanooga back in the 80s. That started up, and it was from Georgia Championship Wrestling, but the booker was Dundee, and we had Jimmy Cornette and Carl Fergie and the Angel and what's the guy that wore the cowboy hat? The Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
And Fantastics, Terry Taylor and Bobby Fulton. And golly, me and Dundee had good matches, traveled together, and he stayed with me. About a year and a half ago, he was doing a show here in Chattanooga, and he stayed with me, and we just sat up all night long just talking, and I'm glad I got to spend some good time with him. I love him to death. I hear he's he's got the dementia thing, and but I loved Dundee. Loved him.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. Lawler, Dundee, there's no Memphis Pro Wrestling without those guys, obviously.
Oh, my Lord. Did you ever see the match with me and Bob Cook against them?
Yes, I have. Yeah. It's a great match.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Bob's awesome, too. We're going to talk about Bob in just a second, I promise.
All right, Dutch Mantell.
Love Dutch. I hear he's sick right now.
I heard that too.
And I listen to his podcast all the time. And I talk to him every now and then. I talked to him about 2-3 months ago, and everything I said, it was just like we hit it. You know, we were back on the road again, and he said, "Man, you need to do a comedy show. That's good stuff." He's freaking out.
And Dutch is hilarious too. So if he's a funny guy telling you you're a funny guy, that means you're funny. You know what I mean? Because we all know Dutch is hilarious too. He's great. He's great. Yeah, I was wearing a Sheik gimmick early on, and it's totally ironic that we call my brother the Sheik on this show, but early on I was doing a Sheik gimmick because my mentor and trainer told me it would be easy heat for me to learn with, and it was, don't get me wrong, the look alone, but Dutch saw us, and I was working a show with Dutch, and Dutch looked me up and down. He said, "That don't fit." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "You don't look like you're Middle Eastern." And I said, "Okay, fair enough. Yeah, thank you, Dutch." And I took that to note, and it did take me a while to lose that gimmick, but I always thought of Dutch telling me that don't work.
Yeah. Did y'all wrestle?
No, I didn't. Well, I wrestled a couple matches, but they were only manager matches. I'm not a wrestler. I would never claim to be. I just worked in the business out in Nashville for a little bit for a couple of companies out there. Mike Porter, Burt Prentice. I'm sure you've heard all those names.
Yeah.
TJ. Yeah.
I did shoot wrestling in high school, but
yeah, you were amateur high school wrestler, which, we could have turned you into the next big thing, Jared. You
sure.
Stuck with it.
You still watch amateur wrestling, Sheik?
A little bit. It's
we go to the Southern Open down here. A lot of, Iowa State and
big
UTC. Big tournament, big Christmas tournament. We go to that every year. Actually, it's coming up in January.
Very cool.
Oh,
Very cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Grundy High School in Grundy, Virginia? Have you ever heard of that one?
I've heard of Grundy County High School in Tennessee, but no, are they good?
They're a big-time program. For a small school, big-time program.
Big-time program. They're
cool.
Little high school nestled in the hills, coal mining part of Appalachia in Virginia. And they honestly had attention from so many guys. I think one of the Iowa coaches actually comes and helps them during the off season. I mean, these kids are learning from they basically say, okay, you are in the playpen right now. Y'all wrestle and let's see where you're going to go, So, yeah.
I bet
I have got a great grandson, Gray, that's wrestling in Cleveland. He's 5 years old.
That's awesome.
Wrestling in Cleveland, and Cleveland is one of the top-notch wrestling places in the United States.
I've heard
They're
that.
good.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I bet that Grundy has won, 20 state titles in the last 30 years. I bet. I could be wrong,
that's cool. That's cool.
I think one of their big coaches went to another school for a little bit, but anyway, they're big time. Look them up sometime. I'm sure you'll hear about them eventually. But so the last one in the Mid-South territory, and this guy is so synonymous with this show, with me. He booked me in Nashville so kindly, and honestly, one of my favorite absolute people, Tony Falk.
I've tagged with Tony Falk many times. He's a good dude. Love him to death. Love his son.
Yeah.
Love his ex-wife. She used to work at the boot place in Nashville. And like I said, my son plays country music. And we would come to Nashville, and we'd always have to go see her. I think we bought 2 or 3 pair of boots from her.
That's awesome.
We'd always go see her. Good people. Good people.
Yeah, good people. And Tony and LT, if you ever hear them, they talk in promo, and I love that about them. They, even if they're just telling you a story, it's almost like a promo. And it's, I think, the world of the Falks. And
good guy.
Yeah. Well, in October of '85, you make your way to the western part of the state of Tennessee, and you start working a little bit in CWA Memphis. And this is really cool, Jared. Did you know that it's not Stan Lane, it's not Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, it's not Bobby Eaton? Do you know that we're talking currently right now to one of the original members of the Heavenly Bodies?
Oh, I did not know that.
Well, actually, Don Green, I'm thinking Don and Al Green with Sir Clemens was the original Heavenly Bodies. And then it was me, Tom Pritchard, with Sherry Martell as the Heavenly Bodies. And let me tell you something. We stole the freaking show with the fabulous one, Steve Kern and Stan Lane, brother.
Oh, man, I bet.
Oh, my God. We'd sell places out.
Yeah.
We would spell out.
And thank you for that caveat there. I meant what I was trying to say was essentially the original with Dr. Tom, so I apologize. But you are correct, sir. That is not the original Heavenly.
Well, and let me tell you something else real quick, going back to the Wrestling 1 and 2 deal. I'm not the original Mr. Wrestling #1. Just Ron, I guess hey, we're calling him Wrestling 1 and 2. But Tim Woods is the original Mr. Wrestling #1, not me.
Right. I've seen you referenced as 3 in places, and I've seen you as 1 in places. So it just depends. I think, and maybe it's just literally them just saying you're the 3rd Mr. Wrestling, but not the, even though you're wrestling as Mr. 1 anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
But so obviously, you're working with Dr. Tom, you're doing the Heavenly Bodies. Man, talk about Dr. Tom and talk about Sherry, one of the greatest female wrestlers of all time, absolutely.
Man, I love Sherry Martell to death. We would, her and I would ride to Memphis to do TVs together and just have a ball. But I loved her to death, and I'm so proud of her for what all she's done, and really, really proud that she mentioned Tom and I in her Hall of Fame speech. I thought that was just really cool of her.
I was going to ask you that. Very cool. And I just think the one thing that, somewhat like the midget wrestling at the time, the women's wrestling was the and match. It was like and featuring these 2 women. But Sherry, I feel like Sherry upped it to a level that just really now the girls are catching up to. Do you know what I'm saying? I
do. I agree.
I think Sherry Martell means as much to current women's wrestling, whether they know it or not, than anyone ever. I mean, even Moolah, even Wendy Richter, whoever you want to say, of the great female wrestlers from the past, I feel like just now are the girls catching up to Sherry,
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree, man. Sherry was, she was one of a kind, buddy. She was one of a kind.
Yeah, beautiful and ferocious.
That's right. Totally agree.
All right. So the next one, go ahead, Jared.
How about Billy Travis?
Love Billy Travis. Worked with him many times. Funny guy, good person. Hate that he passed away at such a young age. Seems like he was 40 years old when he passed, but good guy, good wrestler.
Okay, and then obviously with your time in Memphis, the continued battles with the Armstrongs continues on. This is just part of your history with the Armstrongs. This was Scott and Steve. I do believe you worked quite a bit there. And you also worked some with what I would consider a step Armstrong, Tracy Smothers. Talk about those guys, especially that crew.
Actually, Bullet Bob started this whole thing. He was in Memphis, and Tom and I, we were in Jackson one night, and we hung him across the ropes, and that started it all. Here comes the Armstrong. Yeah, to help save Daddy, but we worked with Steve and Scott and had great matches and the whole deal. So it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed working with those guys, enjoyed working with Tom and the whole deal. It was fun.
Yeah, no doubt. And then obviously you talked about it earlier, but I want to touch on it a little more just because I think so much of this tag team, the Fabulous Ones, and again, not the original Fabulous Ones, just like you straightened me out just earlier, but these guys pretty much put that name on a national level, and such an incredible tag team, Steve Kern and Stan Lane.
Yes, they were great. Enjoyed working with those guys. We were in Memphis, and I had done something to Steve. I think it was the belt thing with Sherry on TV. I grabbed it and started hitting him. But he gave me a receipt for all that, and it was at the Mid-South Coliseum, and he kicked me right in the jaw, and I had a hole in my jaw where it hit my tooth.
Ooh, oh man!
I could breathe in and out of that, and I didn't say a word. It was coming, and but loved wrestling with those guys. Wrestled them all over the territory: Louisville, Evansville, Memphis, Nashville, and we stole the show, man.
That's awesome. You just did the loop there.
Well, it'd be a miss for sure if we didn't ask you about Jerry Lawler while we're talking about Memphis.
Oh my God, love Jerry Lawler. Love him today. Man, I hate he's going through, the health issues he's had, and he's lucky to be with us. But wrestling Jerry Lawler is like a night off, man. He's great. He's great.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, the next name on the list, you got to talk another guy that's synonymous with Memphis and in the name of maybe hung well, but also the French Angel, old Frank Morrell.
Love Frank Morrell. He was funny, man. And he was one of the mighty Yankees back in the day, right?
Exactly. Classic.
Yeah. Heck yeah. And he had a head for it, man. He had a perfect mask head.
Yeah, he did. He did.
But got to work with him a lot, especially when he started refereeing and stuff. And it was just fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun in the ring. He'd keep you laughing.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Well, the next team or guys at this time, I'm not sure if they had formed the team yet, but Bad Company, a.k.a. Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka.
Worked with those guys a little while. Loved doing spots with Pat Tanaka. He could do anything.
Yeah. And second generation star. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Loved working with him. He was good.
Had you ever met his father, Duke?
I have not. No, I have not.
Yeah. Great tag team. I always thought they were, obviously you had the Midnight Rockers who were like the Rock and Roll Express. I felt like Bad Company was a little bit like the Midnight Express, but in a good way. And they were completely different as far as guys and workers. But it was kind of like they were trying to capture that rock and roll midnight feel up in the AWA. And it made sense. But man, I tell you, Paul Diamond's a great guy. Croatian soccer player. I mean, and really? Became a wrestler. Yeah. He was a professional soccer player in Croatia and then actually came to America and became an amazing pro wrestler and then matched up with Pat Tanaka and became Bad Company. Great tag team.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah, great tag team. So totally agree.
This next guy, still doing it a little bit, Jeff Jarrett.
I got to work with him when he first started and loved Jeff Jarrett. I loved his daddy, Jerry. I hate that he passed away because I used to talk to him a lot. I would call him at least once a month. And if I ever had any questions about, our radio show or whatever, what do I need to do here, Jerry, he would tell me. But what a family. I got to meet Teeny. And the mom of Jerry Jarrett, the grandmother of Jeff, and Jeff's he turned out to be a good wrestler. He's good. Love Jeff Jarrett.
Oh yeah, he throws that flipper punch. You got to love it.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've noticed is I don't know many people that came from Memphis that don't throw a great punch as far as their strikes go, great punches. So
Right.
Anyway, so in June of '86, you picked the perfect time to go down to Championship Wrestling in Florida. And what was your connection to get there? And I know it was a quick stop, but was it just something on the way while you were down to something else? Or
I guess it was because, I can't even remember where I lived. Seemed like it was Tampa or somewhere. And we would fly to, what's that little island over there?
The Bahamas? Or?
The Bahamas, yeah. We'd fly to the Bahamas and wrestle in Miami and the whole deal. But yeah, A lot of fun there. Chris Champion. What were they called?
New Breed.
Sean. Yeah, the New Breed. And Tyree Pride. And Jerry Gray, I think, was there. And
was Buddy Bob there? Bob Cook?
I don't think so. I don't think.
He may have moved on at that point, but yeah, I know he had a strong tie to that territory, especially. So, you brought him up. Do you have any good Chris Champion stories?
Later in the years, he wigged me out, man. He was weird. He passed away. I don't know. He was a weird dude, but that was just, I guess. I don't know.
That was just him. Yeah. Well, so 86 was a very big year for you and also very busy. You're in Championship Wrestling from Florida in June. In November, you make a stop in Continental. And then in December, you make your way to Central States out in Kansas, man. Talk about how all that worked, essentially.
Well, it got there through Dundee. Dundee wanted me to come out there with, like I said, the Mod Squad and Mitch. Oh, my Lord.
Here comes that Mitch again, right?
I know. Yeah, we had a good time, a lot of fun. Warlord, the whole deal. And that's, and back in them days, or I guess back today, a lot of snow up that way in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But it wasn't no big deal. Everybody just, hey, we hauled ass. We'd go to I got to wrestle in Des Moines, Iowa, and Topeka, and Wichita, and all those cities out through there. And made decent money.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, so then that leads you, honestly, you dropped off in Central States in the early part of December. In the latter part of December on into 87, you actually are working in the Mid-Atlantic, and you work a young guy named Todd Champion, who became somewhat of a bigger name later on. But you actually, what's funny is I saw you worked 2 bunkhouse stampedes in California. So here you are.
Wow.
In Florida, then you go to Continental, then you go to Kansas, and then you're in the Mid-Atlantic, but then you're actually doing the Mid-Atlantic out in California. So, man, busy year, huh? All over the country.
Yeah, it was, man. Got to wrestle at where the Lakers play ball, and got to wrestle at the Cal Palace in San Francisco, and Tingley Coliseum, and where was that town? New Mexico. Albuquerque.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Now, what did you? Was that the first time you'd ever wrestled in California?
It was. It sure was. Yeah. Now we had passed through there in '83, going to Japan and the Philippines with Ole, and it was a lot of fun.
That's very cool.
So in '88, you went back to Memphis and you worked people like Bob Holly and Tom Brandy. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Bob Holly, Lord, he was a fixture in WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Marcel Pringle, a guy from Mobile, Alabama, brought Bob into World Organization Wrestling in Pensacola. And I said, here, train him, Pat. And he was already dressed out, and we done a couple spots. And I said, okay, we're done. So Bob Holly was good. Bob Holly was a good wrestler.
Yeah. Now, you were there in Memphis during a time where it kind of turns from CWA to USWA. And one of the matches that you worked in the very early days of the USWA is against a guy that we've known as several different names, but at this time, he was the Master of Pain. And I bring this guy up for a reason, because you do have a history with him. But starting out, talk about an early Undertaker.
Oh, yeah, man. When he first started, and we didn't, the guys that brought him up and bumped for him and make him look good and helped him with his timing and all that, we, don't get no, hey, these guys helped him.
Yeah.
But good guy, always a good worker. Got to work with him in WWE, and good guy. Good guy.
That's awesome.
Lord, what's his history? Look at him, man.
Oh, no joke. Yeah, no joke, for sure. So,
hey, the guy, Mitch Snow.
Mitch Snow. Okay, great.
Mitch
great.
Snow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, we knew we would get it, right? Well, you got it. What am I saying? We. What do I mean we? Yeah, so in August of 89, you actually end up in WCW at this time. Now, it had moved on from the Crockett's. Turner bought it out. It's now NWA, WCW, whatever. What brought you back there? Who was your connection to get that first set of bookings with them again?
Jody Hamilton, and it was on, worked with those guys for years, and I was on the transition out because I had done, I felt like I had done all I could do, I guess. And, but yeah, Jody Hamilton always took good care of me with WCW.
That's awesome. And you worked a young guy at that time, didn't really know much about him early on other than he'd worked a little bit in the WWF, but Tom Zink, the Z-Man.
Oh, yeah. Good match, man. Love Tom Zink. He could work, him and Brian Pillman. Loved working with those guys. They were good. They were good.
Yeah. What did you see in an early Brian Pillman there? How did you feel about him?
Oh, I loved him, man. He was him and Steve Austin made a good tag team.
They really did. Yeah.
And Brian Pillman by himself doing the crazy stuff. He was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about Dan Spivey and Sid?
Sid, whew, those guys would kill you. You just had to protect yourself.
Yeah. Our last guest, we had David Isley on, and he actually said, Jody, I'm not working Sid. I'll just stay home.
I don't blame him, man.
Well, these next two guys are familiar faces to you as you've known and worked them plenty of times before, but they were still doing it at this time in August of 89 in Arn and Ole Anderson.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, I remember a match in Pensacola. We was doing TV, and it was me and what did Danny Davis used to do? Not the Nightmare, but the Latvian.
Yes.
He and I tagged, and we got to use I got to pick up a set of wrenches and hit Arn with them, and he went down. It was funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
How about the total package Lex Luger?
Man, what a match. Gave me the whole thing and then just picked me up for his finish and set me down, and we had a good match.
He always had the look. He wasn't quite as, smooth in the ring, but he always had the look. And
oh, yeah, he looked great.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, how about the Steiner brothers?
Love working with them. Always trusted them. I knew they had the strength to do what they were doing. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And, they were good. Real good.
Yeah, Scott was very inventive with some of those moves and almost looked like he would kill himself at certain times, It was
right.
Very, very talented guy. So you brought this up a little earlier when we brought up Arvel Hutto. In December of 89, you're working WCW at this time, but you actually worked the Rockers in WWF with Arvel. So I guess let me ask you this question. First, was that just common for a guy like you? You could go to the WWF and it not bother your WCW booking?
Oh, of course, because I was enhancement back then, getting ready to, like I say, transition out. So they would let me do what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Now, this is the $2,500 question or whatever they call it. Rock and Roll Express or the Rockers? Your pick. Who was better?
Roll.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll.
Yeah. The original,
without
right?
A doubt.
Yeah. And you could even trace the rock and roll back to the Fabs if you wanted to. But what I mean by that is the specific rock and roll gimmick. I do think the Rockers were pretty much a ripoff, as we know. But when it comes down to it, they held their own and were a very talented tag team. But how did it feel seeing your old buddy Arvel during that time, too?
That was good. I always liked Arvel. He got a good push with Nick and stuff, and he's always been good to me, so I love him to death.
He is the most humble guy, but he's hard to interview because he don't want to brag on himself at all. He's just so humble and just say, I wish I did more. And I'm like, well, Arvel, let's just talk about what you did then, because you did some awesome stuff, tagging with Bobby and tagging with Tommy Heggie. I love the Dante and Mephisto gimmick. I've always loved that too when they got together in 2012. So anyway, well, you stayed in WCW and you actually worked in, I think it was a 6-man tag team match, but it was Great Muta and Buzz Sawyer, 2 of the names in there. I would just love to hear any interactions with Muta, Buzz Sawyer, and their manager Gary Hart.
I didn't know Muta too good. Like I said, worked with him at one time, and real smooth, excellent worker.
Yeah. Did you know Gary at all? Did you get to know him at all?
I did not, but I was a fan.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I've talked to him back in the dressing room. That's about it.
Yeah. So a little stupid story that the listeners are tired of hearing, I'm sure. I took the Sheik gimmick off, and I'm bald and I have a beard and I'm about 6'1", 6'2". So I imitated Gary Hart to the best of my ability after that. And it actually was a little more successful for me in the scene. But I love Gary. He's my favorite manager of all time. I know Bobby's probably the greatest, or Jim, either one. But Gary is my favorite as far as that goes. So anyway.
Yeah, I loved hearing him talk. He done a heck of an interview.
Abdullah the Butcher, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it, and he would actually carry that legit razor blade in his pocket and everything, man. So, yeah. So you actually worked some great guys during this time. You actually worked Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan in a tag match. Talk about those 2 guys, and I would love to hear, did you get put in the Tree of Woe?
I don't think I did. Now, did you mention Kevin Sullivan and Cactus Jack?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, I didn't think I did. I had to do an elbow deal with Jack on the floor.
Oh yeah. That's T-Plug.
Yeah, but right? other than that, it was good.
Yeah, we've just heard that George South tells a story about how you had to cover yourself up sometimes on that Tree of Woe because Kevin really didn't care where he landed.
No, I never had to take that, so thank God.
Yeah, no kidding. You actually end up working the Midnight Express, too, at this time, which turned into Bobby and Stan. How did you feel about them as a tag team together?
Oh, they were great, man. They were great. My favorite tag team, Bobby and Dennis, but Stan and Bobby was good as well.
Yeah. Well, how about a little of the differences? Do you think, what do you think made them different, even though they were the same name?
Man, I don't really know. Dennis and Bobby. Dennis was old school. Just getting into the spots, and Stan was a younger guy.
Okay.
That could fly more. You know what I mean?
Sure. It makes total sense.
I always thought Stan kind of had that cocky jock-like look.
There you go.
Like I really don't feel like Dennis or Bobby really had that like cockiness like Stan did, and Stan would kind of bring that out in the interview, whereas neither one of the other 2 would ever do that really. But
right.
Bobby was so truly miscast as a villain, but he always had Jim getting the heat. He didn't have to worry about it as much. He just had to do the amazing work, So
heck yeah.
Did you ever take the Alabama Jam off the top rope from Bobby?
Never had to take it.
They say he was smooth with it though. So
he was easy, man. He was something else.
Yeah, no kidding. So I am the co-host and producer of another podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D from PG-13, Jamie Dundee era tag team. And we recently had this gentleman on, and you actually worked in a handicap match with Bob Cook against Mean Mark Callis at this time, former Master of Pain, about to be the Undertaker. Did you notice any difference in his work from the time you first met him to now?
No, just had to cover up, take care of yourself.
Understand.
And he was good. He was good. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Now, so Bob, let's talk about Bob a little bit, because we recently interviewed Bob, and Bob's just he's one of the Forrest Gumps, just kind of like you, kind of like Rick McCord. You were there for all the great stuff in and around all the great stuff, and Bob always, to me, had a great punch too, but talk about Bob a little bit.
Bob's a good guy, man. He should have got a push. He like you said, he had a great punch, the whole deal. And love Bob to death. Still talk to him today.
Yeah. Well, you got to work another guy, and this guy maybe, he's one of the sons of one of the greatest of all time, but I think he actually is the best Rhodes in Dustin Rhodes as far as wrestling in the ring.
Oh, yeah, man. Dustin was good. We'd go out and practice. It seems like it was a belly-to-belly that he liked to do, and I would take it for him, and he liked working with me because I could take it good for him,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What about working with Vader, though? The total opposite of Dustin.
Vader, he was good. He wasn't stiff with me, and we had a good match. Had to put him over, no problem, but good guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
How about Mike Rotunda?
He's a wrestler, man, and I enjoyed working with him. We done some mat wrestling a little bit, and I like Mike Rotunda. I'd like to see him again.
Yeah, no joke. Okay, well, you worked with this next guy who actually went on to do some incredible stuff in the WWF, but this was very early on in his American time. He'd worked in Canada a lot, but you worked Owen Hart in WCW.
Oh, I remember that. Good match. I loved Owen. He was a funny good dude. And when you talk to other guys, that's the first thing they mentioned was how funny he was. He always was ribbing and always messing with people. I loved him to death.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this guy kind of compared to Dustin because I think Dustin works more like this guy than he did his own father in Barry Windham.
Oh, man. What? For a big guy or a small guy, Barry was great.
Yeah.
Good bumps, good crisp bumps. Spots were there, and he could move like a little guy. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was great. Worked with Kent many times down in Florida.
Yeah, so, you kind of wrap things up, and you work some other names, Johnny B. Bad, Dick Slater, Van Hammer, all kinds of names there. Then you wrap it up, and you end up in August of 92, you end up in the WWF, where you actually meet this gentleman for the third time, and it's the trilogy of matches here. You work Master of Pain, Mean Mark, and now you've worked him as The Undertaker. And I watched this match last night. Obviously, you're not getting any offense. If you got any...
No, not at all.
Yeah.
If you notice, Vince put me over.
He did.
Well, what I mean is, he's seen when they introduced me how I raised my hand, like, damn. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I figured get my butt kicked, but he did the finish on me and put me in the body bag, and I wasn't moving, and I would say, Mark, get me out of this. Hurry up. He started laughing.
Yeah. Okay. So then you end up kind of going around and you end up back in WCW and you're kind of becoming that journeyman carpenter now where you're working all kinds of promotions. But that leads you to a match with these gentlemen. Go ahead, Jared.
Nikita Koloff and Sting.
Oh, it was good. Now, I had been wanting to work. Now, I'm talking single match with Sting, and I've been wanting to work him for a long time. And we finally got to work each other, and the first thing we done on the lockup, I poked him right in the eyeball. I couldn't believe that, man. And I'm like, oh, Sting, I'm sorry, brother, I'm sorry. Yeah, poked him right in the eye.
Oh, man.
You didn't hurt him too bad, though, because he's still doing it a little bit. So.
Yeah. Well, so you worked Shane Douglas and some other guys, but in Smoky Mountain, you worked one of the guys that's actually one of the claim to fame in Russell County. Now, we have two wrestlers in Russell County that got out and did something. This is Russell County, Virginia, by the way. The first one is Hoot Gibson, who worked for the Poffos, worked for Nick some too, and I don't know if you ever knew Hoot. Did you know Hoot at all?
I don't believe I did. They used to call Robert Gibson.
Yeah, that's where they got the nickname for that from this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I heard him tell that story once. Is the only reason I know that for sure.
Yeah, Hoot's our claim to fame, no question. He's, I know he predates you just a little bit as far as the business goes, but then. Actually, you worked this guy in Smoky Mountain, who's our second claim to fame, a.k.a. Mike Sampson, who turned into a masked wrestler named Iron Cross in his later part. Now he's a preacher and stuff. Do you remember Mike?
I do. I remember him, man. And like you said, he's preaching now. And what a body. Good worker.
Amen.
Good wrestler.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and then, obviously you're in WCW still, and you're working guys like Eric Watts, Too Cold Scorpio, a very young Rob Van Dam, a.k.a. Robbie V, Tom Burton. Do you have anything to say about any of those guys? I would love to hear if you have anything about Tom Burton.
Well, I didn't know Tom that well. I heard he sold a couple of territories and all that, man, but I didn't know him that well.
Yeah, gotcha. So, and then working Davey Boy, the Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, how was that?
It was good, man. Always a fan of the British Bulldogs. And,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Well, that leads you up in February of '94 to Smoky Mountain again, and you're actually working guys. One of my favorite guys that I've gotten to know very well after, his retirement and in the current months and year is Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony. Talk about him. You actually got a victory over this man, by the way.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Tony Anthony, good guy, man. He was a good worker. Him and Lynn Denton. Remember Lynn Denton?
Yes.
He tagged with Lynn Denton, I'm thinking, as the grapplers one time, and they were good.
Oh, yeah, they were awesome. They were very awesome.
So I see you worked the Shockmaster in WCW. There, he has quite an entrance that most people can't forget.
He's such a good guy, man. He was on that show with Mick Foley up here in Ringo, man, and got to see him again and talk to him. What a guy, special guy, man. And I would hate to have to live through that entrance. You know what I mean?
I know, seriously.
But I think he's embraced it and just, yeah.
I reckon. Bless his heart.
I know. It's a rough way. Yeah.
Apparently, though, it was like the wall. He was just supposed to walk through the wall, but then Ole or somebody said no. There needs to be a board for support there, and they added a board, but didn't tell him about it.
Didn't tell him.
And it's like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Set up for failure right there.
Yeah, I know. The funniest part is the reactions that, you have Fuller in the background, Colonel Parker. He's, oh Lord, and Sid saying, I told you.
David Boy's got a word or two.
Oh, that was hilarious, man.
We can't say what he was saying, but anyway, it was funny. Yeah. But yeah, and then you worked a young guy named Chris Candido too. How was working him?
He was good. He could have been a star, bless his heart. How did he pass away? Was it
an infection, like a blood clot or something?
It was a blood clot.
Really?
And he wasn't supposed to fly, and he did. And yeah, it was a rough way to go. And he had such a rough time, especially with his woman, Sonny, and now she's got her own issues, which, that's not really. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like ankle or knee surgery or something, and he flew when he shouldn't have or something.
Right.
Like
oh,
yeah. He was semi-managing the Naturals at the time in TNA. Chase has told the story before. I'm not 100% on the specifics, but I do know he shouldn't have flown, and he did anyway. And it was actually a blunder by the way they built the ramp, and it caused him to fall. It was just a bad scenario all the way around. So, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, in 94, now this is just the last that I can tell, but it shows me in WCW worked Jim Duggan. Is that technically your last match?
No, my actual last match was in Riceville, Tennessee for a promoter, Ken Woodby.
Okay.
And I wrestled, I can't remember this guy's name, and I'm sorry. And he's one of the Freebird family members, and he was in Japan a lot, and that was my last match, and man, he really took good care of me, and we had a good time.
That's awesome. Do you remember what year that was, Pat?
That was 94, if I'm not mistaken. April 94.
Gotcha. Okay, got it. Very cool. Very cool. Well, so, thank you so much, Pat, for doing this with us. This show's been so fast. It's flown by. As we kind of wrap up the show, we always pivot to Jared, the Plastic Sheik, for his final question. Go ahead, Sheik.
So it's always a tough question for people, and I expect it will be for you as well. You've been so many places and wrestled so many great people. But if you had to give us one or two matches that you would consider like your favorite matches you've ever had, what would that be?
That would probably be me and Randy versus the Rat Patrol.
Oh, yeah.
Enjoyed working with those guys. And another one would probably be Tom Pritchard, Sherry Martel, and me against the Fabulous Ones in Memphis.
Yeah. Kids, go look those up.
I was really, really lucky to be... Let me go back. I was really blessed to be in all these territories and wrestling with all these great superstars. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate, Jody Hamilton. There's a lot of people I appreciate. Arn, Flair, and, without them, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, you never can tell. But, your resume is on par with anybody's I've ever seen. And it's just amazing that you've spent this. That. Yeah, you've spent this time with us and you've shared all this and these stories. But the thing now is we pivot to you, Pat. So I want you to put yourself over. Especially, I want to talk about, you were one of the great wrestlers of the territory days. You wrestled right up until the end of it, but at the same time you've actually become the heavyweight champion of broadcasting, especially in the fishing realm. So talk about Set the Hook and what you've been doing lately.
You know what, all those nice words you just said, man, I truly appreciate, and
absolutely
thank you for noticing. I've been doing Set the Hook with Pat Rose about 15 years now, and loved every minute of it. And when you have people like Hank Parker and Kevin Van Dam and Boyd Duckett telling you, thank you for what you do. I've been putting over the fishing industry for years, and I've loved every minute of it. I've always loved fishing. When I finally set it down in 94, set the wrestling thing down in 94, for a while there, it felt like I needed to be somewhere. I needed to be in a locker room somewhere putting on my boots. And I would go to shows and take my son to UTC, and I was actually standing in line to get a ticket.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why am I here? I should be in the back putting my boots on,
right.
And stuff like that. But the fishing show's been doing great. Just go to setthehook.patrose.com and you'll see we do it in a podcast form as well.
Okay.
Because everybody's doing podcasts.
Right. Why not you, right?
Plus, we're on 36 radio stations around the country. And the podcast, and you can go to setthehook.patrose.com to get the information. Spotify, Apple, Google, all the podcast platforms.
Yeah. And it's a great show, and I highly recommend it to anyone because, it's funny, wrestling and racing, right? They always talk about NASCAR and wrestling probably have very similar fans, right? Well, I got to think that fishing and wrestling and racing all kind of have similar fans because, man, I can remember days of just going on the bank and fishing with our dad. Our dad, like we've said earlier, he's an avid fisherman, loves catching bass. He's not, let's just say, a pro, but you and he would talk for days just about fishing. And
I'd love to, man. That'd be fun.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, he would rather listen to your show than his own son's. I guarantee that.
Absolutely.
But seriously, though, it's an honor, and to know that not only you've done so much in wrestling, but also, what we're trying to do here, you've been doing. And it's just a treat to get to pick your brain just for these few minutes that we've had together. It just, Pat, I was watching your stuff last night, and I've been watching your stuff for about since we confirmed the show date and recording. And I was like, man, this guy, you were slick, man. You were so smooth. You gave the guys everything that they needed. You were a great salesman. Let's just say that. A very good, I would just call you just a great carpenter. I think that would wrap up your, if you were just to say anything good about Pat Rose, I think a carpenter, a journeyman who knew what he was doing. I mean, that's honestly the truth,
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, man. I've enjoyed this time, and thank you for all you guys do, man. Keep it alive.
I appreciate that very much. And, when it comes down to it, we just thank you, Pat. And y'all go check out Set the Hook with Pat Rose. I know you've probably already listened to it by now, but listen to more of them and listen to it again. And talk about your son. I got to put him over because I'm been stalking you a little bit, Pat, and I'm very impressed with your son's talent and abilities.
Man, I'm so proud of him. Matter of fact, he's opened up for Confederate Railroad. He's getting to open up for Shenandoah.
That's awesome.
And it's a show they're going to have next month. But if you guys can, go to look up Camden Smith Music, CAMDEN SMITH Music. And he's got 3 songs out, got another one in the bag, getting ready to drop soon. And just proud as punch of this kid. And he is, I don't know how he writes music. That just amazes me. But he's a heck of a little songwriter.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I love it. I think he does great stuff. He's got a really good voice and a very good talent, and you should be proud. And y'all go check out that. So go check out Set the Hook. Go check out Camden Smith. Look for big things coming from him soon, very soon. So I'm happy to. All right. Thank you, Pat, for coming on and sharing your time with us today, sir.
Hey, thank you, and I appreciate you guys, and thank you guys, too.
Take care.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you're interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAMtheman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
This is your rock star ring announcer, Aaron Camaro. I'm a man who believes the 2 greatest art forms ever created are professional wrestling and heavy rock music. So when I'm not hosting the best parties that also happen to be live professional wrestling shows, I'm hosting the Decibel Geek Podcast. Decibel Geek is a weekly podcast that features discussions of all things rock. We're talking the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Black Sabbath, Kiss, Ozzy, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Alice in Chains, Pantera, and everything in between. Plus, we'll turn you on to new bands from today that have the same spirit and style that the legends do. Decibel Geek is hosted by myself along with Rockin' Pod founder Chris Sinzak, and each week you'll get interviews with famous musicians and industry insiders along with informative, entertaining, humorous, and insightful discussions, and most importantly, a passion for the music. So if you love to rock out as much as I do, then this is your invitation to the greatest rock and roll party in all of podcasting. It's Decibel Geek, and it's available right now on all major podcast platforms. Oh yeah!
Oh, Well, Sheik, man, what did I say? As always, Pat Rose was awesome.
Yeah, man, he had those stories that I was expecting, you know, just everybody been there, done that. I know I feel like I'm running that into the ground. I need to come up with a different saying, but literally these guys are the carpenters that enabled these top guys to get over. And that's not, and some people might take that as a knock on these guys, but without these guys, none of these top guys are the stars they are.
Exactly.
That's just a fact.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why I despise the word jobber, truly, unless you're really referring to somebody who literally was playing a character of a jobber on TV, like the Brooklyn Brawler was playing a jobber.
Right.
He was meant to be a solid worker that was just getting beat down with them. But these guys, I mean, are just out there putting in work, helping these guys get over. And, you know, these guys got to work on their stuff with highly trained professionals, trained by some of the best names in the business.
Absolutely, man. That couldn't say it better. Let's just wrap it up from there.
Yeah. All right, we're out.
No, man, but that's true. You know, there's a different legacy there when you have, you know, you're working on the job with so many of those great guys. I definitely have become a fan of underneath guys. I think that's the better term in my opinion, because I just don't feel right saying jobbers, man. I know jobbers are jobbers, but whatever. It's, you know, some guys wear it like a badge of honor, but to me, you know, you can call them whatever you want to, but we're going to call them underneath guys, carpenters, journeymen, whatever, territory guys, whatever you want to call them. But long story short, yeah, you're exactly right. Pat's a great example of another one that absolutely just earned his name and earned his legacy the right way. And, you know, one thing you said earlier was been there, done that. And yes, you do say that, but instead of cutting it out, I think I want to double down on it. So hopefully coming soon, you can buy a been there, done that t-shirt for the Plastic Sheik. Just kidding. But maybe so, right? Maybe so. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Pat's awesome. Pat's also a podcaster. As you heard many times on the show, we brought it up. Set the Hook with Pat Rose. And we talked about it before, but he's talked to all the legends, even wrestling and fishing. So if you like wrestling, go listen to him talk about fishing. If you like fishing, I'm sure you'll hear him talk about wrestling. But at the same time, he's just a great guy, tells great stories, you know. So I have no doubt that you'll enjoy his podcast. It's called Set the Hook with Pat Rose. You can get it on all major podcast platforms. Just find him on social media and you'll get all the great links and stuff like that. But yeah, just like that, once again, we're at GMBMPW on all the social media pages, Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Go follow us, subscribe to us, like us, whatever. Just make sure you're up to date on all the current news of the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. We thank you all so much for being the great listeners. We hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year at this point, because we won't talk to him again until the next year. So
That's right, brother.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share, Sheik?
No, just thanks for a good year listening with us, guys, and we're excited for another one.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you to all of our guests of this year. It's been incredible. We appreciate them so much. Thank you all for coming on and telling your stories. Hundreds of hours of content that you all have given us and been a part of, and it just means the world to us that you've shared your stories with us, and hope to talk to you again next year or this year. Hope to talk to more of you next year. And with that, that's all there is for me. And thank you all again.
Don't forget.
Merry Christmas, everybody. We love you. We're going to miss you, Tata.
Love you, Tata.
With a tear in my eye. This is the greatest moment in my life.
This has been a James Rock Street production.